Go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, what is your occupation?
I currently work as a criminalist for the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation at their Criminalistics Laboratory in Ankeny, Iowa.
How long have you been employed there?
I started with them in March of 2022, so just under 2.5 years.
You have sent a statement of qualifications along, and I ask, is that an accurate representation of your education, training, qualifications, and work history?
Can you tell me the date on that document?
Revised June 27th of 2024.
Yes, that will be the most recent copy.
And that would be Exhibit 39. Your Honor, I'd move to admit that.
Any objection?
No objection.
39 is admitted.
You hold a master's degree in forensic science, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
You also have many hours of specialized training on prints.
Yes, I've completed over 500 hours of specialized training through external vendors in the form of specialized coursework and attending professional conferences.
Could you explain to the jury here just what it is that you do?
My job focuses on the examination of items of evidence for the presence of latent prints. So items submitted to our laboratory, I will examine them to try to see or develop latent prints on those items. Those developed impressions can then be preserved through photography or lifting, and then that development is subsequently analyzed and compared to try to attribute those impressions to a particular source.
Could you just tell me what exactly is a latent print versus a known print?
A latent print is the chance reproduction of the friction-ridged skin. So on the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet, we have a specialized type of skin known as friction-ridged skin. When this skin comes in contact with the surface of an item, there's the potential that an impression can be left behind. It acts similar to a rubber stamp, and then the sweat and oils located on that skin act as like an ink, leaving behind an impression. A latent print is considered a chance reproduction, and it happens naturally when the skin comes in contact with a surface just due to routine touching and handling. A known print is going to be the intentional reproduction of the friction-ridged skin. These are captured under controlled conditions where the goal is to record someone's friction-ridged skin. These are generally captured through physical means like inks and powders, or we can capture them digitally through a specialized device called a live scan.
What are the basic factors in the use of friction-ridged skin as a means of identification?
We can use friction-ridged skin as a means for identification due to the nature of friction-ridged skin itself. So the features within your friction-ridged skin vary significantly within the population. So if enough of those features are present in an impression, we can reliably differentiate one individual's impressions from another. Additionally, the skin is generally stable through adolescence to middle adulthood, and that allows us to verify an individual's identity over time.
Could you briefly describe the methodology or process that you use in making comparisons?
When we develop a latent impression, we go through a process known as ACE-B. ACE-B stands for Analysis, Comparison, Evaluation, and Verification. During the analysis phase, we will assess the developed latent print to see if there are enough of those features present to move it forward to compare. If there is a lack of those features, our examination will halt and we will not proceed further. If there are enough features present, we will move on to comparison. Comparison is the process where we compare side by side the features within the latent print to the features within a known print. We look to see A, is the feature present in both impressions? B, is the sequence of all of those features in agreement as well? And then C, we look for if their spatial relationships or where they lie within the imprint are also in agreement. As that process moves forward, we transition into evaluation. This is ultimately where we arrive at a conclusion, and those conclusions generally are identification, the latent print and the known print originated from the same source. Exclusion, the latent print and the known print originated from different sources. And inconclusive, where due to one reason or another, we're not able to definitively identify or exclude the impression. The final step is verification. This is when a second trained examiner will repeat the process of analyzing the latent print, doing a comparison, and then arriving at a conclusion. If those conclusions are in agreement with one another, we will report out our findings.
On or about January 30th of this year, did you receive a hatchet from the Dubuque Police Department for testing?
Yes, I did.
Did you analyze or test that hatchet and apply the methodology you have described?
Yes.
Did you prepare a report of your findings?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit Exhibit 40 at this time, which is the report.
Objection.
No objection.
40 is admitted.
Are your conclusions set forth in your report?
Yes, they are.
What are your findings and conclusions?
Based on my examination of the hatchet, I was able to develop one latent palm print that was suitable for comparison. That developed latent palm print was searched through the Iowa Automated Biometric Identification System. And as a result of that search, it was identified to Tyler Dazey.
Where was that latent palm print located on the hatchet?
That palm print was developed on the handle of the hatchet.
The end, or is it somewhere closer to the head? Where about on the...
I would have to see the item. There should be markings indicating where that impression was developed.
What would the markings show?
We indicate developed latent prints with an indicator, so it would be the item number and a letter, and then you'll be looking for a bracket, and that indicates source and orientation.
All right, thank you very much. I don't have any further questions.
Cross-examination.
What substances was the print made from? Was that from oil and or sweat from the skin?
The techniques that I used to develop the latent print would react with the regular components of latent print residue. So that would be sweat, oils, things of that matter.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to get at was this print wasn't left in blood, was it?
The techniques that I use do not generally react with blood. So this impression in particular, I would say was not in blood.
Okay. Were you able to determine when the print was left on the hatchet?
No, there's no way currently to date when a latent print was deposited on an item.
Are you able to tell how old a latent print is?
No, because we're not able to date when it was placed on an item.
Okay. And how long can a latent print last?
Depending on the conditions and how the item is handled, they can last for basically an indefinite period of time. So it varies, but I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate timeline.
Now, if somebody leaves a latent palm print on an object, and then somebody else comes along and touches that same area and, say, uses that device, what would you expect to see? What effect would that have on the print?
It depends on several factors. So if the second individual was wearing gloves, only the first impression would be left behind. If the touches overlapped, we could have what would be considered a composite. So you could have multiple impressions sitting on top of one another. And how the item was handled potentially has the ability to destroy impressions that were previously there.
Okay. You'd call those smudges, wouldn't you?
Smudges can happen during first contact, second contact, but yes, that would be a smearing of the impression.
Okay. Were portions of this palm print readable and other portions were not readable?
Yes.
Okay. In other words, parts of the print were smudged.
Yes, that is common of most latent prints.
And as I understand it, from what you just said, that could indicate movement at the time that the print was deposited, right?
Yes.
Or it could indicate that somebody else used the device or touched the device after the print was deposited.
Yes, I wouldn't be able to determine if it was a result of the initial touch or subsequent handling.
Okay. And just so we're clear, you actually had the hatchet there in your hands, didn't you, when you tested it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So would you agree with me that there's, if somebody owns that hatchet and they own it for a period of time and they have it in their house, I don't know exactly what you do with an SOG hatchet, but I'm assuming it's either a hunting or a wood cutting device or something to that effect. But in any event, it wouldn't be at all surprising to find their palm print on their own hatchet, would it?
No, it wouldn't. If it belongs to a given individual, it would not be surprising to find their prints on that item.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson, anything else for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. If this hatchet was scrubbed or washed in a shower, would you expect the latent prints to be destroyed?
Potentially, water and scrubbing has the ability to wash away or destroy latent impressions. Not having kind of more information, I wouldn't be able to say definitively if there would be no impressions at all.
Would it be more likely that these impressions were placed on the hatchet after the shower as opposed to before, based on your observations of them?
I wouldn't be able to make that determination.
But potentially the shower would wash away latent prints?
There is the potential, yes.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Blair?
Did you see anything on the hatchet which would indicate that that hatchet was cleaned or showered?
The appearance of the ridges had a beading-like appearance in some areas, which would indicate that the residue was potentially extra wet at the time that the latent print was deposited. So I wouldn't count it out that the hatchet could have been wet at the time the latent print was deposited.
Could that also be from sweat?
Yes.
So if somebody touches it when they're very sweaty, that could produce the same thing.
Yes, it'll give the same appearance whether the item is wet at the time of contact or whether the hands are wet at the time of contact.